Hello, beautiful people. It's been a while since I have made any kind of recording, and I will share a bit about that soon. But I wanted to come on and just talk about when we are in the neutral mind, in the mind of non-duality, and how all the tools that we apply at present become unnecessary. When I went through my first awakening, there was this, because I had skipped all the conventional tools that we hear about in spirituality, the clearing of energy with whatever external tools other than the mind, the grounding as in walking outside barefoot and becoming present with the five senses. It was a little different with me. I skipped all the common practices in our spiritual communities, the ones that are at present known to be the most useful, the most beneficial, the most necessary. And I could not understand when I looked around, just newly awakened, also not coming from a spiritual path before that. So I had no exposure to or understanding around any of this stuff. Being newly awakened and looking around and noticing people using tools, people doing this, people doing that, complaining about the difficulty in certain areas regarding sensitivity to energy. I could not understand it. But I couldn't understand it because I was in a state of mastery. And I just want to explain a little bit more about what that looks like energetically, mentally, emotionally. In that state of mastery, I was not identified with the ego self first. I was identified with the awareness behind it. So any rising or falling of the ego at the time did not move the awareness that I was rooted in. So if that makes sense. The human on the surface was still responding and reacting to life. But my awareness was rooted much more deeply than the awareness on the surface. Okay, so it's not that there was never any rise and fall. It was that the awareness was rooted more deeply, and so it did not impact the thing that I was identified with at the time. So that's what it looked like emotionally and mentally. Energetically, my energy as I understood it later, I couldn't articulate it clearly back then because I didn't understand it the way that I understand it now, but I could feel that something had shifted. Initially, before I come to what that explanation was, initially what it felt like was when I had just started opening up mentally, energetically, and spiritually, I was very much impacted by the energies around me, by other people's emotions. And there was a point after my awakening where it became very clear what was mine and what was absolutely not mine. But in the midst of it, because I didn't understand what was happening, I thought it was all mine. But there were moments later on where I could feel things and I knew, okay, this is not mine. Memories, emotions, mental dis-ease, and I knew it was not mine. How I understand it now, the change basically that happened after that point was I'd stopped feeling the things around me. I'd stopped being so sensitive to the energy of the earth, the energy of the trees, the energy of the people, the emotions of the people. And I started to impact my environment. I noticed that it was the sensitivity that stopped, and I was in a state of stillness and neutrality for most of the time and for an extended period. Beyond the neutrality, became or came love, universal love, peace, a deep, constant peace, and just basically an unmoving self. The chattering of the surface level of the mind, that came to a halt eventually. It took a little bit of time, but it didn't bother me while it was taking that time. And the less attention I gave it, the more it settled down and quietened. How I understood it now, or how I understand it now energetically, is that the aura becomes porous when we start to open up, and especially when we start to heal and dive into the deep, uncomfortable stuff that needs to be released. And when we start to come into that place of neutrality, the energy starts to move outward. And when we come into universal love and peace and those higher vibrations, it starts to blast outward even more. So you basically become like a light walking around, where the darkness cannot penetrate the light. It cannot reach you, because you cannot be impacted mentally, emotionally, because you are not identified with anything that would be impacted mentally and emotionally. It is not that you deny those things. It is not that you ignore them or treat them as inferior. It is just that you recognize the truth of the changing self, the changing mind, as opposed to the unchanging self, the unchanging mind, and you root yourself in that which does not change. Allowing the expressions that change on the surface to happen as they will, as the observer. So yeah, I just was listening to a podcast, and they talked about how you wouldn't need to basically do any grounding, because you'll be permanently grounded. How you wouldn't need to do any energy clearing, because there'd be no need. And it just inspired me to share what that looks like on the ground when you master that. Over the past few weeks of me being MIA on YouTube and in other platforms, I'd been offered an opportunity to move to another country, which really felt like I'd walked through a portal, because I wasn't looking for anything. I was quite happy and content to stay in South Africa and continue growing and building my practice here. I will continue to coach online. My capacity in the beginning will just be reduced while I find my feet in the new place. But in about 3 to 4 weeks, I will be on a new adventure. And so I've been navigating that and doing the paperwork and all the 3D human stuff that needs to be done. I have absolutely shifted energetically, mentally, emotionally over the course of this year, and it has looked messy for a lot of it. There are also videos that I have posted online on YouTube that sometimes I feel the desire to remove, because of how messy some of them were regarding my energy. But I think there is more value in leaving them up and allowing them to be the teacher of myself and whoever else comes across that material that needs to see that in that way. It was basically the movement of Kundalini and the twin flame stuff, how much that triggered a significant purging in my mental, emotional, energetic bodies. And though it is very uncomfortable while going through the process, it is extremely enlightening. I was searching through my mind very quickly to find the right word. Enlightening is the right word. So much density is being dropped through that purging. And so I just want to leave a final little note of love to say that if you are going through the messy part of your healing, of your ascension, of your awakening. And this is not to say that it will not become messy again later for me. At the moment, it's much more peaceful. There are still moments of purging and dis-ease and confusion, but it is nothing like what it was earlier in the year. But if you are going through that, though it may be difficult in the moment to wake up to the realization, when I say wake up, I mean become conscious of the realization or the knowledge that this is for your highest good, as quickly as you can, come to that remembering. If you have to make a note and stick it on your mirror or on your cupboard or in your bathroom or wherever you need to have this reminder that the purging is dropping all that you are not in order to step into a more expanded, higher vibrational level of who you really are at a deeper level, in communion, in relationship with the soul and eventually the higher self. So that neutrality is more in relation and connection with the higher self, not as much with the soul. But as you are going through this, keep sticky notes or something around to remind you that this is a good thing, because it really doesn't feel good when we're in it. We know this. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to be reminded that it's a good thing that's happening. It's for your highest good, for your ascension, for the ascension of the planet. I'm going to leave it there, and I will start up again with the Law of One, Book 2, as soon as the moment feels right. I think I am not going to fight myself on this and allow the energy to continue to flow as it has been, and just allow that to continue to guide my steps. Much love to all of you, and if you would like to share anything in the comments about how you've been experiencing this your own path, whatever path you consider that to be, regarding, of course, spiritual matters, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I will see you all soon.